One of the other things that has came up on previous podcasts and other discussions that I've had with other performance marketers around ChatGPT and maybe some of the downsides or limitations is when it comes to things like ad copy or keyword research. There's a kind of feeling that, okay, if we rely heavily on ChatGPT, is this just going to result in me having mediocre ad copy that's less creative than it could be, or kind of more on the nose, more obvious keyword targeting that already has super high competition? Is that just a case of the prompts haven't been good enough, or you haven't worked well enough there? Or do you think there is a real risk to being over reliant on ChatGPT in those kind of creative areas?
I mean, I think it creates a long-term risk. And so when I worked at Google, we had this project. It was called AdLibs, so a play on the game Mad Libs. And basically, what we said is we're going to have these templates. And so if you're a restaurant, you're just going to tell us the location, the cuisine, and maybe one unique value proposition of your restaurant. And then we're just going to stick that into a template. And so thousands of restaurants start doing this. And the next thing you know, you search for any restaurant on Google, and all of the ads look almost exactly the same because they follow the same template and it's just a different cuisine put in. Right. And so the risk that generates is if that is the ad that stays up there and the systems start learning, okay, this seems to be what people are doing, this seems to work, then it's going to start suggesting more of the same. And we sort of box ourselves in a little bit too much. And Will Reynolds gave a great presentation that I saw of his at Friends of Search in Amsterdam. And he was talking about how in SEO, there's like these listicle articles, right? So these are the top 5 tools for PPC management. These are the top 5 tools in SEO. And everybody's following that same format. And he said that people do it because it works, but it also takes you down this path of not being unique and not having true fans. Like, say something that you stand for, right? Be unique, be personal, be a person. And because ultimately that's what people are going to gravitate towards, and that's going to set you apart from all of these others. But I know it is a struggle, right? Because if this thing works, like, why do the other thing? And so I think you have to figure out how to have a mix of the two. And that can be challenging. And I think that's where, if you go to the GPT or the LLMs, tell it to write in a certain voice, give it a certain perspective. In fact, I'm working on a project. So when I do my social media, there's too many people who just take some random article and they post about it on social media, and the LLM writes the whole thing. But it's like, well, what did you think about it? Like, that's the key thing, right? And for me to say, what do I think about some news that came out? Well, that takes me 30 seconds to have a thought about it. What takes me a lot of time is turning that thought into a nicely written LinkedIn post. Well, that's where the LLM needs to come in. But don't put the LLM before you even have the thought, because that's the risk. Now I end up having no more thoughts, or my thoughts are completely constructed by the LLM. And the human mind is funny too, right? Like, after a while, like thinking back at my days at Google, I'm like, yeah, I remember this was the conversation I had with Larry, but was that really the conversation, or is that just a construct in my mind because I read something that I later on wrote about it? So there's very much this risk that we have the LLMs craft our messaging, and then we look back and we're like, oh yeah, this is what Fred stood for. And when there's a digital clone of Fred after he dies, and my great grandchildren interact with that digital clone, maybe it completely misrepresents myself because it's no longer my actual voice. So I think, like, fundamentally, that's one of the most important things that we need to think about as humans is, like, what is your perspective, right? Putting the words on the paper, that's the part you should ask help with. But having an opinion, like, that should be yours.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and a good steer in the right direction. And yeah, it's the initial thought is the key part. Get that down on paper first, and then go from there. Yeah, it's wise
Well, and,
advice.
and the key point, James, too, is that, like, you don't even have to get it down on paper. And one of the earliest tools that I used that was large language model related was actually using the Whisper technology from GPT, and it is really good at. It's the best transcription software that I've ever seen. Like, it makes fewer mistakes than even the Google transcription. But what I started doing very early on was, this thought is in my head about something, and I would just narrate it into my phone. And as I was narrating, a lot of people, the way the mind works is you process thought by talking about it, and you hear yourself say something, and you're like, actually, that was wrong. Like, let me build on that, or let me change it. And when you write, that's really difficult because now you have to edit your paragraphs, you have to go back, it takes a lot of time. But when you're narrating to the phone, it's basically like, oh, you know, the thing I just said about quality score, like, I actually don't believe that anymore. Just change it, and this is what I believe now. You give that to ChatGPT, the transcript, it's going to do a perfect cleanup because it understands that you said you changed your mind, and it's going to stick with the thing that you eventually came up with. And so instead of even spending 5 minutes writing down what is your thought, like, take 30 seconds, narrate it, have GPT make sense of whatever mumbo jumbo's in your brain. And then that cleaned up version goes to the LLM, and that produces the content. And boom, because I've written like hundreds of blog posts, it actually knows my voice and it writes it perfectly in my voice. It's amazing.
It really is. It is amazing.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Paid Media Lab. If you found it useful, you can get the full-length episode on the Lunio YouTube channel, where you can also subscribe to catch all our latest releases. And if you want free tools, reports, and guides to help you uplift the efficiency of your PPC campaigns, head to lunio.ai and click on the Resources tab in the nav bar. See you in the next one.